Good afternoon, everybody. What I'm going to say today, I wish I didn't have to say, and I hope I'm totally wrong. And I hope that in a month or two or three, people will come back and they'll say, look, there's no need to worry about what you said. You were completely wrong, and I will be really, really happy if I am. But I think that food shortages are coming, and indicators are screaming red everywhere that this is on the cards and on the horizon, whether it's economists, whether it's people in the freedom movement, people who are commentators, people actually in the food industry itself, even some mainstream media outlets are now talking about food shortages coming to the UK, even more so in the USA. And in some countries, you've already seen this happen. Countries like Sri Lanka, which have had food shortages for the last month or two. And when it first happened, there were reports all over the place of riots, of people desperate for food going and raiding the big houses of politicians who lived in luxury, while ordinary people couldn't get food for their families, for themselves. They couldn't get fuel even for their cars to drive around, even a few miles. So that's happened in Sri Lanka. There's other places like El Salvador, Ecuador, I think, have had food shortages as well. And it looks like it's coming to the UK, as it is around most of the Western world as well. And it's completely and totally avoidable. It could have been, with better decisions made by people in government over the last many, many years. First of all, this is happening because of the insanity of net zero ideology, which says that carbon dioxide is some kind of harmful gas, and therefore we need to stop using fossil fuels. But fossil fuels are cheap and they're plentiful, and farmers need fossil fuels to drive their tractors, to plant crops, to harvest crops. And when they can't afford the fuel, then either food prices go up or they just don't plant the seeds, because they know that they're going to lose money on every crop that they plant. Now, combine that with other insane policies such as rewilding and paying farmers not to use their land. In fact, giving them some money not to farm means that farmers have not planted the amount of crops that they normally do in a year. On top of that, the price of fertilizer has gone through the roof because the Western nations have provoked a completely unnecessary war with Russia. They're not yet saying they're at war with Russia, but we might as well be. Absolute craziness. And, whatever you think of that, whatever you think of the sanctions on Russia, there's no doubt that the price of fertilizer that mostly comes from Russia has gone through the roof. So farmers need to have much more of an outlay and investment in fertilizer just to grow crops. And, that's why essentially the agricultural sector in Sri Lanka has just collapsed, because the farmers can't afford fertilizer. They still can to some extent here in the UK, but they're not going to be able to do it as much and buy as much. In the Netherlands, also, we've just seen last week an absolutely crazy edict from the government there in the Netherlands that because they want to be green, so-called green, they've said that 1/3 of the farms have to close and not grow any crops on their fields. And of course, a lot of small and medium-sized farmers that have farmed their lands and farms for generations are just, they're stuffed because they can't use their farmland anymore because of this government edict. They're not allowed to grow crops on their own farmland. So they said, no, they're protesting at the moment. The whole country is up in arms. The tractors are everywhere, blocking the borders, blocking the ports, blocking perhaps the areas around the parliament and spreading manure in front of politicians, which I think is what they deserve. Now, I'm a politician myself, but I'm not in one of these insane parties that wants to bring in a new world order and a fourth industrial revolution and build back better. I want freedom. And that's freedom to go about your business without governments interfering and impinging on your civil liberties and your fundamental freedoms. So we are very different in the Heritage Party to all of the major parties in the UK Parliament at the moment. Fake Conservative, Labour, Lib Dem, Green, SNP, they would all make things worse for ordinary people in the economy. So I started off talking about food shortages. All these things are working together, and it looks like it's going to create a perfect storm in the coming months. Now, I don't know whether that will be later this month, later in July, August, September. I don't know. The thing that may happen in August and September is that Russia may say that you are not allowed to buy food unless you purchase it in rubles if you're an unfriendly country to Russia, which most of the Western countries are, with the exception of Hungary and Serbia. And they may also just say, well, we're not going to sell you any food, full stop, and I wouldn't blame them, considering that Western nations have put sanctions on Russia, as Liz Truss, our dopey foreign secretary, said she wants to cripple the Russian economy. I mean, that's not something that you should say if you're the foreign secretary. You've got to be wise with your words, and she is not wise. That's me being very, very polite about Liz Truss. So there you go. I hope I'm wrong. And I hope there won't be food shortages. And I hope you can all come back to me in October and November and say, David, that video you made about food shortages, you were totally wrong, and it didn't happen. No one would be happier than me if that is the case. But look, if there are, I think it's worth thinking about what you do and about what you get in store, what you do with your money. I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. I'm just saying, consider banks, consider what they are now. If you keep your money in a bank account, technically that money is not yours. It belongs to the bank. You can still take it out. But if there is some kind of crisis, the banks can just freeze your money. And the reasons and the rationale for freezing your money gets bigger and bigger every year. More and more criteria people can use to freeze your money. Saw what happened in Canada with the Canadian truckers, just for expressing themselves with their freedom of speech and freedom of expression and opposing the Trudeau regime. A lot of them had their bank accounts seized just for giving $25, $50 to the Canadian truckers. So I hope that doesn't happen here in the UK. But we just have to be wise about what we do, I think. But look, get a little bit of food in here. I've got myself some dried pasta. I've got myself some dried beans. I've got a little bit more than this. This is only a small package. I'm getting in some tins. So, this is a tin of beans. You can eat this straight out of the tin because it's in tomato sauce. You got some corned beef. Don't say I really like corned beef that much, but again, it's something protein. You can eat it straight out of the tin. And fruit and vegetables, tinned vegetables, tinned fruit. Got some nice, I quite like these actually. There's tinned pineapples. I like tinned mandarins and tangerines as well. They're quite nice. So, if fruit is not available, fresh fruit's not available, tinned fruit, You know, it's still just £1 a tin, and you know, get some. If you got some, and the worst comes to the worst, then you've got it. If the worst doesn't come to the worst, it doesn't matter. You can still eat it anyway. But if it does come to the worst, and you know you haven't got anything, then you know what are you going to do? So I'm just saying, you know, it's up to everybody to decide what they do in terms of prepping and so on. But you know, personally, I think it's wise. While food prices have gone up a little bit, you know, and I've noticed in the supermarkets the price of food has gone up 10–20% for many food items, sometimes more. If the price of food goes up 200, 500%, 1000%, it's going to be difficult to buy as much for your pound when there is a food shortage, if it kicks in, than it is now. So, you know, that's just something to think about and consider what you're going to do. Again, I hope I'm totally wrong, and you can come back in October and totally take the mick out of me for this video, and I will be forever laughing at myself. But, you know, these really are things to think about now, and I wouldn't be making this if I wasn't hearing from lots of people in lots of different places, you know, who got their heads screwed on. You know, that tough times might lay ahead. But of course, if we get wise leaders in, then we can avoid them. But unfortunately, in all the Western countries, with the exception of Hungary, with President Orban, and Brazil. Well, Brazil's not really in the West as such, but you know, President Bolsonaro is a wise leader and very based. I wish we had some leaders like that in this country. But there you go. Please do give me a thumbs up to the video, subscribe to my channel, and if you could as well, join the Heritage Party. That helps me, that helps the people who are standing as candidates. And you can also, if you really want to, put yourself forward as a candidate yourself for the local elections in May, and the next general election, which is likely to be in May 2024, because we need to make a challenge to these awful MPs in these awful parties that are just selling our nation out to the globalist agendas, and get people in who care about our country, our United Kingdom, and set it on the right path again. Thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you have a lovely day. Anyway, God bless you all.